Hello, Rama Rama Pupodu. I hope all are healthy, having a nice life, living a nice peaceful life, feeling very relaxed and happy always. Now, let's go to the next chapter. Himalayan journey continued. On the fourth day, they started on their journey higher on the hills. As they climbed higher and higher, the scenes and landscapes they saw were simply enchanting. On the right, the sacred Ganga was rushing downhill in all her glory, and on the left, high rocky hills full of foliage and trees presented at once a thrilling and absorbing sight. The very air over there was charged with the divine presence of Ram. The far off hills and valleys, the varied hued sky in which the white fleecy clouds assumed fantastic shapes, the snow capped mountains, hundreds of miles away, up, dazzling in the rays of the sun as though they were covered with sheets of silver, was indeed an imposing sight. Oh, the charm of the scenes! Oh, Ram, poor Ramdas cannot find adequate expression for describing the grandeur, the beauty, the wonderful glory of the sights that met his bewildering gaze. As he walked on, he drank deeper and deeper of the splendor of Ram's infinity and was lost in the intoxication of it all. O Ram, thy kindness to thy slave is really unlimited. From the day to day, both Ramkinkar and Ramdas walked on at a high speed. Ramdas felt no fatigue, no pain, no discomfort of any kind. He was as ever fresh as ever. It was all due to Ram's grace, whose name was ever on the lips of Ramdas. Thus, mountains after mountains were traversed, and as they climbed on, grander and newer scenes presented themselves before their wondering gaze. It was a journey in the land of enchantment. It was all a bewitching dream full of the glory and greatness of Ram. There Ram exhibits his marvelous powers. He is a mighty conjurer. Vision after vision dances and flits before your eyes, and unconsciously you fall under the subtle charm and spell of this great magician. You forget what you are and where you are. You are simply absorbed and lost in the surroundings, like a wisp of smoke in a hurricane. Ramdas was walking at a high speed. Nay, he was veritably flying even. The difficult ascents were scaled in no time. Most of the time, Ramdas was unconscious of his body. His mind was entirely merged in Ram, who alone appeared to him in those enchanting scenes. Higher and higher climbed the indefatigable pilgrims. Ramkinkar, who had a heavy bundle to carry, complained of Ramdas' running speed since he could not keep pace with him. But Ramdas was not his own master. Ram was his master. At a certain place they missed each other, causing anxiety for both. But however, Ram brought them together at a stage called Rudraprayag. Some thousands of pilgrims are every year ascending these hills, and during this season, that is from March to June, a regular stream of people is going up and coming down the hills. All the pilgrims, sadhus, and others whom Ramdas met on the way were very kind to him. Some rich merchants from cities like Bombay were very solicitous. Because Ram is kind, all are kind, and Ram is in all. The mountains are peopled by hill tribes, a fair complexed and well built race. They live by cultivation and cattle and goat breeding. Naturally, their lives and ways are simple. Their faith in God is very great. Ram, Ram is always on their lips. If you talk to them, they tell you with a glow of pride that they are the descendants of the rishis that lived in those hills. Their clothing is totally made of wool. Males wear long woolen coats and drawers and a black cap. Women, rough blankets for saris. These blankets are prepared there only out of the wool yielded by the sheep they tend. So, the foodstuffs and clothing, the two essentials of life, are the produce of their own labor. Even while walking from place to place, every man and woman carries a quantity of wool, which he or she goes on spinning on the way. They have simple pit looms on which they weave the yarn into cloth. Since their mode of life is free from the baneful touch of modern civilization, they live simple, pure, honest, and pious lives. At different stages of the journey over the hills, under trees, or in small huts or caves, are seen sadhus engaged in austerities. To seek their company and remain there for even a small period of time is a high privilege. The society of a sadhu is a much needed bath for the mind. The pure atmosphere he creates around him by his meditations is the river in which the mind bathes, purging off its evil thoughts and impressions. Upon these sacred hills are the ashrams of such famous saints as Narad and Agastya Muni. There is also a place called Panduheshwar, where Pandavas are said to have altered for some time during their journey to Kailas. There is a temple here and some old inscription upon plates of copper. The first place visited by Ramdas and Ramkinkar on the heights of Trijungnarayan. The ascent to this spot was sharp and steep. It was a plateau surrounded by hills covered with snow. Hence, cold here was great. The pilgrims remained here for one day. Then, descending for some distance, another chain of hills was mounted. Now the path was narrow, rugged, and dangerous. Frail, rickety bridges had to be crossed at three places. Large tracts of snow had to be walked over. On account of the perilous nature of the path, every year many pilgrims are reported to have slipped down the cliffs and washed away in the rushing torrents of the river, many hundreds of feet below. One instance of a narrow escape may be mentioned here. At a certain stage, in the middle of an ascent, Ramdas was sitting on the path awaiting Ramkinkar. This was the edge of a high cliff, and the river was flowing far below. The path was very narrow. A girl of about 16 years old, full of energy and activity, was coming down on a return journey. It was a sharp descent for her to walk down. Her pace was rapid, and the sharp downhill path only accelerated her speed, and in spite of herself, she was running down at an uncontrollable velocity. Down, down she came. She was excited. Her face was flushed, and she knew she was being drawn down automatically, and it was beyond her power to control herself. Instead of running towards the hillside, she was staggering down to the edge of the path, the very brow of an precipice. Ramdas watched the scene with breathless suspense. He was silently calling upon Ram to save her. Ram alone could do so, and none else. Now she came up to the edge with a superhuman effort. She controlled herself. She had come to the very brink. Part of her left foot was out of the edge. "O Ram, how terrible a condition! Ram, thy name be glorified." Ramdas looks and sees the girl falling on the path right across, uttering, "Ram, Ram, saved, saved." Ram saved her. She got up, did not wait a minute, but continued a walk further down. Dauntless girl, what a marvelous faith in Ram is thine. Another was the case of an old woman who gave up her body in the basket in which she was being carried by a sturdy mountaineer. who was specially engaged for the purpose. At certain distances, this carrier would lower down his burden for relief, and the last time he did so, it happened to be near the place where Ram Kinkar and Ramdas were resting on the roadside. The bearer, as usual with him, lowered the basket on a rock and asked the old mother to step out of the basket for some time, but receiving no reply, and the woman still remaining in the basket, the hillman peeped into the basket, and a cry of surprise and pain started from him. "The poor woman is gone," he exclaimed. "O Ram, thy will is done." Then, walking higher and higher, Ramdas and his kind guide eventually reached Kedarnath. This was indeed a grand place. This was also a plain land in the midst of high towering mountains covered with snow. The cold here was extremely severe. O Ram, thy kindness upon thy slave was so great that thou hadst made Ramdas almost proof against cold. That's all, folks. Let's see in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupoda.